course, this is a big year when it comes to elections. That's why we have the York County Office of Voter Registration and Election Office joining us here. We have the very talented Alan Helms, who's the York County Director for the Voter Registration and Elections Office, and Allison Mallard is the Public Information Officer. And good morning to you both.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
You enjoyed the chuckle when I said you can access this radio show actually
on the
radio.
radio.
What a novel idea.
How about
that? I do have people say all the time, or come up to us and say, like, I watch your show, and I say, oh, thanks so much. And assuming CN2, they're like Palmetto Mornings. I said, oh, that's right. Yes, you can watch us. So however, we are just meeting people however they consume media now.
Right.
Yes.
It's no longer just one venue.
Across the board. And we're so unique to have this.
Yes,
so.
that's right. We're like Celanese. We're like 8 lanes of media.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, we're getting ready for the statewide Republican primary. It's on Tuesday, June the 11th. Now, that's the actual day of the primary, but we know here in South Carolina a couple years ago, a legislation was passed that will allow for early voting. We'll get to all that in a second, but let me start with this question. So it said the statewide Republican primary. For us here in York County, we don't have a Democratic primary?
We don't. All the candidates that filed for the Democratic Party will go on to the November ballot. There was no opposition for those offices.
Okay, well, it doesn't come as a huge surprise, right? Because South Carolina is a predominantly Republican state. So the primaries for the Republicans is usually you have to get through that, and then you make it on through
Correct.
November if you pass from what the voters say. So that's on Tuesday, June the 11th. So let's walk us through early voting, when it starts, where we can vote, and just some of the rules and regulations.
Sure. So it starts on May the 28th, which is a Tuesday. It's Monday. It goes through June 7th, Monday through Friday, from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at each one of those locations. We have the Baxter Hood Center, Carolina's Cornerstone Church, the Clinton College Library, and our office.
So, Allison, let's say I work here in Rock Hill. I'm covering a story in York, and I want to vote early. Can I do that?
Yes. Early voting is not precinct bound, whereas the primary day is. That means that no matter what your address, please make sure it's current, that your address is linked to your precinct, but during early voting, it's open. You may go to any early voting center between those hours, 8:30 to 5, anywhere in the county. Make sure you have your current photo ID, and you can review your sample ballot at scvotes.gov so that you know who you're voting for. People sometimes are surprised when they're looking for a candidate and it's not there because they don't necessarily know what district or county council area they live in. Make sure that you go ahead and take a look at that because you can see, I looked at mine the other day, there are only 2 races on my ballot that I am eligible to vote for. So people need to take a look at that and just, make yourself educated. SC Votes lets you know on primary day, also if you want to vote that day, where your polling location is. Some of those are temporarily moved because of different reasons. Vacation Bible School, doesn't allow us to be in certain polling locations. So we have to go where we have access to space and our voters are welcome.
So that goes back as just to counter off of what Allison says, be ready to vote. So do that education before you go to cast your ballot. Know where you're going to do that and make sure you have everything ready before. So be ready.
So the example I just gave, I live here in Rock Hill. I'm covering a story in York, so I'm going to swing by the York County Government Center in between one of my breaks. I'm getting my ballot still that's tied to my address. Even though I'm voting in York,
That is correct.
Doesn't mean that I'm getting the ballots for those in York. So you get the ballot that's attached to your
Voter registration. Exactly.
Okay, that's good to know because to your point, Allison, it happens at least every election cycle. Someone will contact us and say, so-and-so wasn't on my ballot.
Yeah.
And the first thing we ask them, well, where do you live? And is that race in your district? If not, then you're not voting
Tough
for it.
luck.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's huge. With all this, and gosh, it's probably opening a Pandora's box. What other things that are common questions like that you all get from voters?
One of the number one questions we get is how do I change my party affiliation? That is a big question we get just about every conversation, at least 2 or 3 times a day, from phone calls or people coming in the office or via email. In South Carolina, we don't register by party, so voter registration with your party affiliation just doesn't exist in South Carolina. So you don't have to do that. So there's no need for them to ask that question. But
again, because they get headlines from other states where other people have to declare,
or they're coming from another state where they previously lived. So,
and what that means is that our primaries are open to every eligible voter. Doesn't matter what your political ideal or party preference is, because this is Republican candidates only in this primary. It doesn't matter what your
party affiliation is.
Yeah. Your emotional party affiliation is. You're not registered by party here, so you may vote in the Republican primary.
That's another good point to point out there. Let's remind folks about another date to put on the calendar. What is it, May the 31st? And what's the importance about that date?
Friday, May 31st, by 5 p.m. If someone is interested in receiving an absentee by mail application and qualifies for it, that is the last day that we accept applications for that request. It's a 2-step process.
Correct.
Voters who are eligible for absentee by mail contact us, request an application, verify the information, send that application back to us, get it to us somehow. They can come in the office on that day and sign it if they're able, and then that notifies us that they are interested in receiving the absentee by mail ballot, and then that goes in the mail. As soon as we get the application, once the ballots are ready, 30 days prior, then it goes out immediately. Sure. We generally stop mailing the applications out on about the Tuesday of that week. We start letting people know that their chances of it being mailed to them and then being back to us by Friday is slim.
And we will encourage early voting at that point,
right.
The best option at that point, just to save place in the mail, time frames, moving things through the mail system.
Okay, that's a good date to put on your calendar. All this information, again, is on the York County website. Just look for the Voter Registration and Election Office tab, and all the links are there to walk you through a lot of the different questions you might have. And they always need poll workers. So what they do is they add you to a database, and if you're needed on June the 11th or prior, you'll be notified. If not, you might just make it for November's election, right? I mean, it's probably the best way of doing it, because things happen in life, right? Your volunteers are volunteers just like that, but sometimes they might pull a hamstring, and you need to pull someone up from the little leagues to come on up to the big leagues. But that's so you just constantly always are in need of poll workers. What an amazing experience that is. And they're always so nice, and they're so excited to give out that sticker, that coveted I voted sticker.
It's a proud moment.
You can collect the whole set. For sure. So, okay. Well, happy voting. We will continue to let all of our listeners know about the dates when early voting gets underway and the locations. And we will hopefully make your life much easier over there at the Voter Registration and Elections Office. Alan Helms is York County's Voter Registration and Elections Director. Allison Mallard is the Public Information Officer.